The NFL playoffs start in 2 weeks, and here's a look at the NFC playoff picture. With Saturday's loss, the Lions will likely be the 3 seed, which means they're projected to play former franchise quarterback Matthew Stafford and the Rams in the wild card round. As for the Cowboys, they would clinch the NFC East with 2 wins and 1 Philadelphia loss, or 1 win and 2 Philadelphia losses. Dallas plays at Washington in Week 18. The Eagles host Arizona this week before finishing at the Giants. If the Cowboys do not win the NFC East, they will be the 5 seed. Will play on the road on Wild Card Weekend at the NFC South champion, which right now would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dallas hasn't advanced past the divisional round since the 1995 season when they won it all. All right, back here with Brian McFadden. Welcome in CBS Sports NFL writer Ryan Wilson. The Lions playoff right now looks like they will be the 3 seed.
Yep.
B-Mac, this is the situation they are in. They are staring down a matchup against the quarterback they drafted and traded away in Matthew Stafford and the Rams. We heard Dan Campbell post-game say we're going to see the Cowboys again, which tells us, and that's not surprising, he is so confident they're winning their wild card game, B-Mac.
I love it. Now, maybe he's caught up in the emotions of what just took place, but he's putting it on paper. He's putting it on wax for all of us to talk about. I would love to see that matchup. Honestly, when you talk about the relationships with Matthew Stafford being drafted, as Hakeem mentioned, to the Detroit Lions, being traded away. You talk about Brad Holmes, who's currently the GM for the Detroit Lions, who's been doing a wonderful job, by the way. Used to be with the Rams organization as well. So this would be an ideal matchup because I love what I'm seeing, especially coming from the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford. And Sean McVay has done a great job coaching. I feel like, you know, outside of Kevin Stefanski, I think Sean McVay has really displayed the best coaching job in the National Football League when you talk about the success they've had in doing more with less, with the guys who we really didn't know anything about until the games have been played. And now we know exactly who Puka Nacua is, Kyron Williams, and some other young players as well that have service. So this would be an ideal matchup, but it seems like if it was to happen, it doesn't matter. The Detroit Lions will win and get ready for the Dallas Cowboys in the next round based on what Dan Campbell just gave all of us.
So if that matchup does in fact happen, B-Mac, that'll be 2 of the best draft classes to come out of last April and early May because both the Lions and the Rams crushed it. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves because you guys just spent a lot of time talking about what happened at the end of that game. And while you were talking, Mike Garafolo of NFL Network reported that here's what happened. I'll just give you guys the beans so you can figure it out now instead of waiting afterwards and looking at it on Twitter. So both Decker and Skipper approached the official. Decker said, "I'm going in." And they both approached to confuse the Cowboys. The official misheard, thought it was Skipper number 70. Skipper said, "I didn't say a word." And when when the official went over to tell Dan Campbell about it after the play, he said it was number 70. And that was the confusion. And the irony is, if you go back to that first Cowboys-Eagles game, the Cowboys had a touchdown taken off the board midway through the 4th quarter because of a miscommunication from the officials about who was eligible and who wasn't. Just to clear that up, because I don't think this affects the Lions in any way, shape, or form. I applaud Dan Campbell for having the guts to go for it there. And I think what he was saying as they continue to back up on that 2-point conversion is that I'm riding with you guys, not just tonight, but into January football. And I think this is what they're going to lean on when they get to what will probably be, Akeem, as you pointed out, the number 3 seed. I think they're fine with that. I think they're fine with the home playoff game. And I think they're fine with the way this team is coming together. The defense has to play better. And we saw glimpses of that tonight. That was the first time the Cowboys had not scored more than 30 points at home. And they should have won that football game. And you talked about it earlier, Akeem. Mike McCarthy got bailed out, partly by the officials and partly by the play calls and then by the Lions there. But I feel pretty good about where the Lions are. I think this loss is something they're going to be galvanized by in Detroit, and it'll serve them well over the next month or so of the season.
Interesting, right? It's an interesting situation. Certainly the miscommunication between Dan Skipper and Taylor Decker with the officials at the end of the game.
Yeah, so basically Dan thought
he went over basically what happened here is that he went over, he was bluffing.
It was 2 guys.
Correct.
2 guys came to him.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was the situation. Dan and Taylor go over to the officials. Dan doesn't say a word, is what he says.
It's Taylor, but the official thought it was Dan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look, here's the situation. You can't discriminate because all offensive linemen, they look the same, but they don't look the same. They have numbers. Come on, get it right. This is bad, man. This is why I can't stand umpiring and officiating. This is like Angel Hernandez bad. Come on, man.
It was, yeah. If that was the era, that wasn't on the player. It was more so on the referee thinking he heard one player speak and it wasn't him. That is tough way. And I know, Ryan, you talked about, yes, the Detroit Lions would be okay in having a number 3 seed, but heck, think about if they could get the number 2, because a win tonight would have gave them a great opportunity to get the number 2 seed, of course needing some things to take place in their favor.
Sure.
But if Philly was to lose, as you mentioned earlier, the Detroit Lions would own the tiebreaker with Philadelphia and with the Dallas Cowboys if they finish with the same record.
Yeah,
so
if they were the 2 seed, as it's currently constructed, they'd be playing the Seahawks, who they lost to in overtime in week 2. And they'd want that as a revenge game, but that's not going to happen right now because likely they'll be the 3 seed. The Cowboys, Ryan, still have a chance to win the NFC East. I laid it out here. They play at Washington in Week 18, so they finished the regular season perfect 8-0 at home. So they clinched the NFC East with 2 wins and 1 Philadelphia loss, or if they only win on this night and 2 Philadelphia losses, which feels unlikely as well, they would win the NFC East. Ryan, what's more likely here in this scenario?
I'll take it a step further, Akeem. If Dallas wins out, which will win their next game because they won tonight, and San Francisco and Detroit lose out, and Philadelphia goes 1-1, the Cowboys are the number 1 seed. I mean, what's going on?
Oh,
so I think your scenario is certainly more likely than the number 1 seed overall, but it's fun to talk about as they go down the stretch. The issue is this. You don't want to have to go on the road if you're the Cowboys, and right now, according to our guy Stephen O coming into this game, they were 95% to hit that number 5 seed, and that's where they currently find themselves. We'll see what happens with the Eagles ahead of them. But the problem is that when you're the Cowboys and you go on the road, you're 3-5 and you're only averaging 22 points a game. We know how well they play at home. Tonight, notwithstanding, they probably should have lost that football game, but the previous 7 games, they have scored close to 39 points or thereabouts each and every game, and that's what you like to see. And we see that they're 2 different teams depending on where they line up. The defense has not been great, and we know how good Dan Quinn has been during his 2+ years, almost 3 years there in Dallas. But over the last month or so, they've struggled a little bit, and that's something they need to get right, especially if they're going to be on the road. I think they're probably their best path, their most likely path to January football is going to be through that number 5 seed, in which case they need to shore up a lot of things. And by the way, right now they would face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield's playing like his name is Tom Brady, and I don't know if you're the Cowboys, you want to go to Tampa Bay and face that team as they are currently constituted. But we'll sort that out a week or so from now. But right now, they're celebrating that win, and they're in great shape if you're the Cowboys and Dak Prescott and crew.
Great shape. I don't think I know, out of all the teams currently in the playoffs, the Dallas Cowboys would need home field advantage more than any other team.
3-5 on the road.
Yes. So the window for that to become a reality is still alive because of what happened tonight. Of course, they have to take care of their business the final week of the season against Washington, but they will need some help. Hopefully, they will be cheering for the Arizona Cardinals, and then next week cheering for the New York Giants. I think those are the 2 teams that Philadelphia Eagles have left to play. And heck, they will be cheering for Washington as well, because Washington is hosting San Francisco. So the Dallas Cowboys are definitely in a good spot because they took care of their business tonight, and now they can go ahead and just watch football like all of us and cheer for opposing teams that are going against their rivals and teams that are currently in front of them when you talk about having home field advantage and, of course, winning their division, which currently sits in favor of the Eagles, the NFC East.
I just love the fact that every single game on Sunday matters. Every game has playoff implications.
And
every single game.
Just this week, but next week
too.
Also. So the way they
may not be every single game,
but the majority.
But the majority.
Yeah, you remember
a few
years back, it used to be games at the end of the last game. It was like no one is really paying attention because of what's going on. But the way they structure these games, and of course having divisional games basically all happen the final week of the season, makes football very, very interesting towards the end.
Brian McFadden, Ryan Wilson here on CBS Sports HQ as we examine the playoff picture in the NFC as we get down to the nitty-gritty Week 17. Man, this is must-see TV as you take a look what we've got on CBS. 7 games on CBS with playoff implications in every game, including the top 2 seeds in the AFC clashing in Baltimore. Dolphins visit the Ravens at 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you remember last year, they met early in the season, week 2. Tua and the Dolphins rallied from 21 down to beat the Ravens 42-38. Tua threw for 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 of them in the fourth quarter. You know the Ravens are out for revenge and much more. Baltimore clinches the AFC North and the #1 seed with a win. You can see it go down on CBS, also streaming live on Paramount+. Coming up, we'll show you exactly what happened in Dallas. Taylor Decker, Dan Skipper. What happened? We're going to show it to you next on CBS Sports HQ.